Hello, my yarny friends. I'm Sara Sach, and welcome to Friday Fun with Sara. Now, today we're going to make something useful, but also something that we're recycling. So what we're going to do is we're going to take an old jar or container, make this style coaster. It looks like this. It's all open, and put it on top of our jar or cup and make a wonderful crochet hook holder. Now you can also put knitting needles in this. You can use it for pencils and pens. You can also use it for some of your smaller utensils in the kitchen. And you can use a mason jar. Like this one I thought was really cool because it had a handle. You can use a plastic cup. You can use the plastic mason jars, or you can just use a glass that maybe you have an extra one where you don't have a complete set anymore. The main thing is it needs to have a lip so that it doesn't come off. Like this cup has a lip. Your mason jars have a lip. And you can also get in your pantry or cabinets, and if you've got like an old pickle jar or mayonnaise jar, you can use glass, you can use plastic, any container, as long as it's long enough for your crochet hooks. And like this one's taller, so I can put the taller crochet hooks in there, or maybe the knitting needles. It's a really fun project. I wrote this pattern quite a few years ago, and in our move, I've lost the one that I was using. And so I decided I needed to make another one. And in unpacking my things, I found this one. It's super cute with a cow on the front. Isn't that cute? And so I'm going to show you how to make this today. All right, so let's find out what we need to make some of these. So to make one of these hook holders is what I'm calling it, you just need, of course, like we talked about, a type of container, like a cup or a glass that you have that you want to reuse. Like this one, I just love this style, and it has a handle. Now you can go out and buy mason jars if you want to. If you don't want to buy one, but you want a mason jar, check your local Goodwill stores and places like that. Every time I go in there, I almost always see some mason jars. All right, so then you need some yarn, and we're using a medium weight number 4 yarn. I'm going to use this today for our demonstration. These two are made out of cotton. You can use cotton or acrylic or whatever medium weight number 4 yarn that you have on hand. All right, it doesn't matter. It's just what you have on hand. Use up some of that yarn stash and again make something useful. We're going to be stitching today with our eye hook, which is a 5.5 millimeter crochet hook. You need a needle and a pair of scissors, and that's all, except for your crochet hooks or pins or whatever you want to put inside it. So we're going to begin with our slip knot. We're going to chain 2, 1, 2, and now we're going to stitch 8 single crochets in the second chain from the hook. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. We stitched all 8 of those single crochets in that second chain from the hook. Now we're going to join to that first single crochet and chain 4. And so for row or round 1, we have 8 single crochets joined with a slip stitch to the first single crochet and chained 4. Our chain 4 counts as a double crochet chain 1 for row 2. And now what we're going to do is in each of those 8 single crochets is stitch a double crochet chain 1. And remember, the chain 4 counts as your first one. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 6, 7 and 8. And now what we're going to do is we're going to join to the third chain of that beginning chain 4 with a slip stitch. And so for row or round 2, we have 8 sets of double crochet, chain 1. Now for row 3, we're going to slip stitch in this first chain 1 space. We're going to chain 4 because that counts as a double crochet. 1, 2, 3, 4 counts as a double crochet, chain 1, and then we're going to double crochet in that same chain 1 space. And then we'll chain 1. So basically we stitched a V-stitch. So we're going to stitch a V-stitch in each of those chain 1 spaces, which is a double crochet, chain 1, double crochet, and then chain 1. And we'll do this in each one of these chain 1 spaces. And you can see how it's making nice open spots for our crochet hooks or pencils and pins or scissors or whatever we want to store in there so they can slide right through. Double crochet, chain 1, double crochet, and then chain 1 again. So again, I'm stitching a V-stitch in each one of those chain 1 spaces. Chain 1. Now we're going to join again to that third chain of our beginning chain 4, and we'll go ahead and slip stitch in this chain 1 space and chain 4. All right, so now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 V-stitches with chain 1s in between. Now for row 4, our chain 4 counts as a double crochet, chain 1. In this chain 1 space, we'll stitch another double crochet and chain 1. And now what we're going to do is in each of the chain 1 spaces, all the way around, is stitch a V-stitch, chain 1. So double crochet, chain 1, double crochet in that first chain 1 space, and chain 1. Now we'll go to the chain 1 space of that first V-stitch and stitch a double crochet, chain 1, double crochet, and chain 1. So we're stitching a V-stitch, chain 1 in each of the chain 1 spaces between and in the V-stitches. And we'll work this all the way around, stitching a V-stitch in each of the chain 1 spaces of the V-stitches and a V-stitch in the spaces in between, and again chain 1 in between each of those V-stitches. All right, so basically V-stitch, chain 1 in every chain 1 space all the way around. So I completed all of those V-stitches, and again our V-stitch is a double crochet, chain 1, double crochet, and then we chained 1 in between, and we stitched a V-stitch in each of those chain 1 spaces around. I joined to the third chain of the chain 4 and then slip stitch in that first chain 1 space. Now for row 4, we're only going to chain 3 instead of chaining 4 like we did on the previous rows. And now what we're going to do is stitch 2 double crochets in this chain 1 space, 1 and 2. Our chain 3 counts as 1, and we stitch 2 more. Now we're going to slip stitch in the next, and then when we get to the next chain 1 space, we're going to stitch 3 double crochets. 1, 2, and 3. We'll slip stitch in the next chain 1 space and stitch 3 double crochets in the next. And so we're just alternating slip stitches and 3 double crochets which is our simple shell stitch. And this just makes a nice shell stitch edge all the way around the edge of our circle. And of course you can use this as a coaster if you want to. Just remember it has those holes in it, and it really just needs to be used to protect the wood surface and not, whoops, there we go, and not used for soaking up sweat off of a cup. Because it has the holes in it, it'll get the table underneath wet as well. But it does make a nice little doily if you want to put a little silver candle dish on it, or maybe a little glass container with a candle. All right, so what we're doing for row 4 is we're stitching a 3 double crochet shell stitch in the next chain 1 space, and then slip stitch in the next. And you can see how it makes that nice fun shell stitch. And we're going to do this all the way around and then join back to that first one. I have completed all those shell stitches around. Here's my last slip stitch, and I'm going to join to that chain 3 and cut our work. Alrighty, so the yarn's clipped. I'm going to weave this to the back. So I'm going to pull this back here, and I'll use my needle to weave this in. I've already weaved in that center one. You don't want to pull that one too tight. Normally we close that hole really tight, but I usually don't on this one because I'm going to use it, of course, maybe to put a hook through. All right, so now I'm tidying this up, and the next thing we need to do is to make that tie. There we go. Isn't that cute? And it will be a little bit ruffly. We kind of want that. That's why we put so many shells in there. All right, let's grab our yarn one more time. And you can use a contrasting color here. Like I've done this one in kind of a tweed that I had left over from a previous project. I could do the tie in a brown or even a bright yellow or something. It's up to you if you want to keep it the same color. All right, so what we're going to do now is we're going to make that slip knot, and we're going to chain 50 chains. If you want a longer tie, like you'd rather tie a bow, then you can chain more. It's totally up to you. And also, if the top of your container is bigger, you might want to make more chains to make your tie longer. I'm going to chain 50. So I've chained my 50 chains. I'm going to go ahead and cut that. Tie that off, and I'm going to tie that nice and tight on the ends. Getting it as close to the end of that chain as possible. Clip that. I'm going to do that on this end as well. There we go. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to take this and we're going to weave this through on that 4th row. And I'm going to go in and out of those V stitches, and you'll notice I've got my hook going backwards, and I do this sometimes, not always, but I do it sometimes. I think it just makes it a little easier to get it through. All right, so I'll go through the V stitches on a little farther on. Till we get back around to where we started. Did that the wrong way, didn't I? There we go. All right, so now we're back up where we started. Make sure our ties are kind of even. I'm going to put it on this jar. So I'm just going to slide it on there. You can see all those openings where you can put things in. Now, what you may want to do is take some of your leftover yarn and roll up a ball. Okay? And that's going to keep it from making noise in the bottom of the bag. Now, I didn't roll this one up. I'm just going to stick it in there, and that's going to keep it from making noise in the bottom of your jar when you put your hooks in. But you don't have to do that. Okay, this one over here I put the rest of the blue in the bottom there, and that'll keep the hooks from hitting the bottom making noise, but you don't have to. It's totally up to you. Same thing with your pens and pencils. Okay, and then we're just going to take this and we're going to pull it nice and tight. And I just tie a knot. And then if I want the tie longer, like I made it a lot longer, then I can come in and add a bow if I want to. And that's going to keep that from coming off. There we go. Now, if you want to add a little extra pizzazz, you can always add a button. This one would look really cute with a cow button on it, wouldn't it? All right, and then now it's ready to add pens, pencils, whatever you want to add to hold inside your jar or cup or glass. Isn't that fun? Isn't that a great and fun project? Here's the one that I made that has the cow on the jar with the handle, and then I put this one on this one. And again, you can get in your pantry or your cabinets and save the jars of pickles or spaghetti sauce or whatever, and you reuse that jar to make these. And these make great gifts. And like I was saying, you could always add a button right here or a gem and make it really pretty. And if you're giving someone some crochet hooks, give them one of these as well. Or you're giving someone something crochet, or you want to make some jellies and jams, you can still make this. Just leave the mason jar on and add this on top. So there's lots of fun uses for this particular project. And I love projects where there's lots of fun uses. So thank you for spending a little time with me here on Friday Fun with Sara. And I'll see you next Friday, and we'll have a yarny good time.